Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. This is the second video on process costing. In the first video, we talked about process cost system. We explained the similarities and differences between job order cost and process cost system. We also explained the flow of cost in a process cost system. And finally, we explained how to make the journal entries to assign manufacturing cost in a process cost system. In this video, we will talk about what is equivalent units and how to compute equivalent units. In the third video, we will talk about steps necessary to prepare a production cost report and how to prepare a production cost report. But in the beginning of this session, I would like to thank my son, Muhammad Abdullah Khan, who gifted me an iPad along with all the necessary accessories without which making these videos would not have been possible. I would like to thank Navia Khan for helping me out in preparing these awesome slides. I would like to thank my wife Samina for her care, encouragement, and constant support, who allowed me to use time for her in making this video. Let us start with the concept of equivalent units. One of the challenge in process costing is to determine the unit cost of products transferred to each department. The equivalent unit concept is important to face this challenge. Equivalent units of production measure the work done during the period expressed in fully completed units. Companies use this measure to determine the cost per unit of completed product. The units of product in work in process are partially completed. Companies are interested to know how many of these incomplete units equal to complete units. This is calculated by multiplying the number of physical or actual units on hand by the percentage of completion of the units. If the physical units are 100% complete, equivalent units will be the same as the physical units. However, if the units are not 100% complete, the equivalent units will be less than the completed units. For example, if 4 units of product are 50% complete at the end of the period, then 2 equivalent units will be equal to 4 physical units times 50%. So let us look into an example. Compute the cost of instruction per full-time equivalent students at your college on the basis of the following information. We have the cost, we have full-time students, and we have part-time students. Now, it would have been easy to calculate if there were only full-time students, but here we have also part-time students. So, in order to calculate the cost of instruction per full-time equivalent student, we must find the equivalent units of part-time students. Now, part-time students take 60% of the classes of a full-time student during the year. To compute the number of full-time equivalent students, we use the formula full-time students plus equivalent units of part-time students. Now they are 60% of, they are holding 60% of the classes. So 60% times the number of part-time students, that is 1000. Full-time are 900. So that gives us full-time equivalent students equal to 1500. and the cost of instruction per full-time equivalent students will be the total cost of instruction divided by the number of full-time equivalent students. So the cost per full-time student is 6,000. Let us look into one more example. ABC company's mixing department shows the following information for the 1000 units of product remaining in work in process at the end of the period. Assume there were no beginning inventory, direct material 90% complete, direct labor 30% complete, overhead 60% complete. Calculate the equivalent units of each of the three product cost, direct material, direct labor, and overheads. The formula used to calculate equivalent unit is the number of physical units times percentage of completion. Now for materials, the equivalent units will be 1000 of the partially completed units times 90%, and that is equal to 900. For labor, 1000 times 30%, that is equal to 300, and for overhead, 1000 times 60%, that is equal to 600. Calculating the equivalent units of production can help a company understand how much work and money they have to put into their manufacturing process. Especially, it's a way to understand how much money, material, and labor have been invested into items that are partially complete. An understanding of how to calculate it can be important for accountants, small business owners, and others who manage manufacturing process. It is important to note that it has no relevance from an operational perspective, nor is it useful for any other type of cost derivation other than process costing. In the next slide, we will discuss weighted average method. Under the weighted average method, equivalent units are calculated based on two things. Number one, units completed and transferred out, and units in ending work in process inventory. Units completed and transferred are finished units and will always be 100% complete for equivalent unit calculation for direct material, direct labor, and overhead. For units in work in process, we would take the units unfinished times a percent complete. The percent complete can be different for direct material, direct labor, or overhead. For example, in a specific period, the entire output consists of ending work in process of 5000 units, which are 60% complete as to material, labor, and overhead. So the equivalent units of production will be 5000 times 60% of 5000, and that is equal to 3000 units. Let us look into a more complex example. The output of Corey Company packaging department during the period consists of 10,000 units completed and transferred out, and 5,000 units in ending work in process, which are 70%. So the equivalent unit of production are 10,000 plus 70% of 5,000, that is 3,500. So that is equal to 13,500. Next, we look into the concept of conversion cost before we explain refinements on the weighted average method. It is assumed that units are at the same stage of completion for both labor and overhead. Accountants call the combined labor and overhead cost conversion cost. Conversion costs are those costs incurred to convert raw material into final product, meaning direct labor and overhead. This illustration assumes that 9,000 units are completed and on an average at 2,000 units in ending inventory are 40% as to conversion cost. This means the department transfers 9,000 units fully completed and 2,000 units for material fully completed and 40% for the conversion cost. So 40% of 2000 is 800. So this is equal to, so the equivalent units will be 9,000 plus 2,000, that is 11,000, plus units in ending inventory times percentage, that is 40%. So we have 9,800 for the conversion cost. Let us now look into an example on how to calculate cost per equivalent unit for a company that uses weighted average method of process costing. Now, ABC company is a manufacturer and they use process costing for their bottling department. Although in real life, companies that use process costing usually have lot of different departments and the cost flows through from different department to department. But to make this example simple, let's just focus on only one department. Now, as can be seen, the bottling department bottled 2,000 units of juice during the period. So 2,000 units. And then at the end of the period, they still have some juice that is not completely finished. So there are 500 units that are 100% complete with respect to direct material, but only 80% complete with respect to conversion cost. Just keep in mind the conversion cost is direct labor plus manufacturing overhead. So direct material will be 2,000 plus 500. Direct material is 2,500 and that is complete units. We are considering direct material as complete because we are assuming that all direct material contents are poured in these 2,500 bottles and no more direct material will be added. While 80% of the conversion means that still some additional work needs to be done to be finished by the bottling department. That's why direct material and conversion cost are split into two, as they have a different cost per equivalent unit. Now the total cost is given as 1,000 and cost incurred during the current period is say 225. So the total cost is 1,225. So the cost per equivalent unit for direct material will be 1,225 divided by 2,500, that is equal to 0.49. The conversion cost will be calculated a little different because even though we have got the 2,000 units that were completed during the period, we have 500 units that are still in process and only 80% done. So to get the number of equivalent units, we will multiply 500 by 80%, and that is equal to 400. So assume the cost are 1200 plus 240. So we add these costs together, and this will be equal to 1440, and we will divide it by the number of equivalent units, that is 2400. So that is equal to 0.6. So 0.49 is the cost per equivalent unit with respect to direct material, and 0.6 is the cost per equivalent unit with respect to conversion cost. Let us look into one more illustration. Now here the information is related to the mixing department at the end of June. The illustration indicates that the beginning work in process is 100% complete as to material cost and 70% completed to the conversion cost. In other words, the company adds all the material at the beginning of the making process, and the conversion cost, that is labor and overhead, related to the mixing of these ingredients are incurred uniformly and are 70% complete. The ending work in process is 100% complete as to material and 60% complete as to the conversion cost. We then use the mixing department information to determine equivalent units. Let us see how to compute equivalent units in the next slide. In computing equivalent units, the beginning work in process is not part of the equivalent units of production formula. The units transferred out to the baking department are fully complete as to both material and conversion, that is 700,000 transferred out. So we have 7,000 over here. The ending work in process is fully complete as to material, so we have 200,000, and 60% for the conversion. So 60% of 200,000 is 120. We therefore need to make two equivalent unit computations, one for the material and the other for the conversion cost, and the formula is given over here. This is for the production material and this is for the conversion cost. Let us look into an example or into an exercise. Now in vein company, materials are entered at the beginning of each process. Work in process inventories with the percentage of work done on conversion cost, and production data for its sterilizing department in selected months during 2014 are as follows. We have the beginning and we have the ending. Now we have to compute the physical units for the month of January and May, and we have to compute the equivalent units of production for material and conversion cost for each month. Now the units to be accounted for can be calculated in two ways. One is we take the beginning work in process, and this is 9 plus 2, that is beginning work in process, you can see is 0. So we have 0 over here, and it started into production. It was 9 plus 2, that is 11,000, and 16 plus 7, that is 23,000. So the total cost is 11,000 and 23,000. Now the units to be accounted for can also be calculated by using the information from the transferred out and ending work in process. Now transferred out is 9,000 and 16,000, while the ending work in process is 2,000 and 7,000. So you can calculate either way, you will get the same result. You can see. Next, we compute the equivalent units. So first of all, material is 100% complete. So 9 plus 2 is 11. Nine plus 2 is 11. 12 plus 3 is 15. 16 plus 7 is 23. And 10 plus 15 is 11,500. Now for conversion, we will be having 9,000 the completed units plus 60% of 2,000, that is 1,200. So that makes 10,200. For in this way we can calculate. We have the completed units as 12,000. For the month of March, 12,000 plus 30% of 3,000. So 12,000 plus 900, that gives you 12,900. So in this way you can calculate for May and July, and those who want to verify their answers, they can verify from the solution on this slide. Let us look into one more question exercise. And the polishing department of Harbin Company has the following production and manufacturing cost data for the month of September. We have materials are entered at the beginning of the process. Production is 1600 units that are 100% complete. So work in process that is complete is 1600. And the beginning is unit started during the period is 38,400. So that makes 40,000. Units transferred out, we are going to calculate. So we have a total of 40,000. And ending inventory is 5,000 units over here. So we have 5,000. And the balancing figure is 35,000. Units, so units transferred out is 35,000. And for the material it is 100%. So 5,000 were there. So 100% is 5,000. And 10% is for the conversion. So that makes 500. So if you make the total, this is 40,000 and 35,500. Next, we go for the calculation of part B. So first one, compute the equivalent units of production for material and conversion cost for the month of September. So for material we have 40 and for conversion cost it is 35,500. For part B, compute the unit cost for materials and conversion cost for the month. Now the direct material that is given in the question is beginning is 20,000. Direct material is 20,000, and then the cost added to produce during the summer is 177,200. So the total is 197,200. So the material cost per unit will be 197,200 divided by the divided by 40,000, and this will be equal to 4.93. Next we go for the conversion cost. The conversion cost was given as 43,180 cost, and then the conversion cost was 120 labor and overhead applied in 125 plus 257 140. So this will be equal to 382 820. So the total will be 426,000. Now the conversion cost per unit will be the total conversion cost, that is 426,000 divided by the units, and that was for conversion it was 35,500. So this is equal to 12. Okay. We go to part C. Determine the cost to be assigned to the units transferred out and in process. So transferred out was how much? That is 35,000 times 4.93 plus 12, that is equal to 592 550. Work in process for the month of September, 30 is for materials. This will be 12. For first of all, let us go for the material, and for material this will be 4.93 times 24,650. Sorry, times 5,000. 4.93 times 5,000. So this will be 24,650. And for conversion cost, this will be 12 times 500. That will be equal to 6,000. So the total will be 30,650, and we sum up the two. This is equal to 623,200. So the cost to be assigned to the units transferred out and in process is 623,200. For those who want to have a much clear calculations, it is on this slide and you can verify the answers. And this completes our discussion on equivalent units. In the next video, we will talk about production cost report. Remember, effective questioning brings insight, which fuels curiosity, which cultivates wisdom. If you have any question regarding this session, then please put it in the comment box or email me, and inshallah I will reply you back. Happy learning.